Welcome to MINDSHOCK. This is your host, Bruce McGuire, and we have a special interview today with the one and only Dave Bogatka. For those who have not followed Making a Murderer, Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey's saga in Corruptawak County, you may have not heard of one Dave Bogatka, who was, it's very interesting, coincidental, some might say, that Bogatka was involved in both of Stephen Avery's cases, the 85 assault on Penny Bernstein, in which Dave Bogatka was on a jet ski and witnessed the aftermath of the assault and cited some very interesting things, and then lo and behold, he cited Stephen Avery on Halloween, the night of Halbach's alleged, or the day of Halbach's alleged murder. And he also has many other interesting things to say in an exclusive interview here on MINDSHOCK, in typical MINDSHOCK fashion, with logic and reason at the forefront. As always, if you want to help support the podcast, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. Make sure you subscribe, like, and share Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, and Patreon. Patrons to get priority for case topic, logical analysis, co-podcast, or requests. You could also be a guest in the podcast depending on your tier. Questions, comments, theories, thoughts, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind, leave them in the comments section. Unless, of course, you are with us here live, drop them in the live chat. You could also become a YouTube member right here on YouTube to help support the channel that way. So before we get to the interview, this man actually sent me quite a few receipts. He's actually sent me more receipts than anybody else. Now, when I started doing true crime podcasts, I was very adamant not to really have interviews as to cloud or tilt certain narratives or theories, just to try to remain as objective as possible. But Dave Bogatka has been commenting in the MINDSHOCK chat and comments for quite a while on many other topics other than the Stephen Avery case. So clearly he's not out for fame and fortune or clout specifically attached to the case. So, and he made some very, very interesting comments on many very interesting topics. So definitely somebody I was interested in talking to outside of the Stephen Avery case as well. But of course, his expertise as a local, as a longtime local, is, possibly second to none from what I've seen in terms of interviews. So we will dive into that, but let's go through some of the receipts first. I think a lot of people are going to be surprised at the receipts of Dave Bogatka. So this man has lived a very interesting life. So obviously he's a Manitowoc local. He was involved in many things in the Manitowoc area and outside of the area as well. But there are certain parallels we're going to get to between Bogatka and a certain other individual. But for those that have been following him on social media, I mean, this guy was a motorcycle racer, stunt driver, stunt rider, rather. I guess you ride motorcycles, you don't drive them. I used to ride at one point, too. And this is not a small guy. So this is a very, very large individual pulling these maneuvers. And so again, this isn't some random nobody out for attention. I mean, he sent so many receipts here. This is him at 13 years of age doing these huge jumps. I mean, this guy definitely liked to ride. I mean, a lot of people might think the Manitowoc area is kind of boring, but I mean, if you had the life that this guy has had, maybe not. Some more receipts here in races here. 14 years old, racing against men. Looks like fun times in Manitowoc County. It's not all darkness and corruption. If YouTube's a little laggy, again, apologies. YouTube does weird stuff sometimes. I mean, you can tell he's a really big guy here. Now it's going to get more and more interesting here with the saga of Bagatka. He also designs custom motorcycles and bikes. I mean, this is one of his custom designs here. Featured in many magazines. Pretty renowned in that world from that area. Cool stuff. So it's gonna... Okay, he's also... wrenched and drove the rig for HMC Racing for 10 years. Won 7 national championships and 2 world. Quite an accomplished individual. Not just in this field. I mean, the parallels, when he was sending me all the receipts, I was thinking, I mean, what is this guy? Is this guy like Steven Seagal? And for those who think that it's a little early for those comparisons, for those who think it is, check this out right here. Oh, wait, we got some more racing ones. Just setting the stage here for the interview because, again, this isn't some random guy out for attention. I don't know, can anybody tell? Is that his wedding or something? Shades of Steven Seagal for sure. But for those who think the comparison, it might be unwarranted. Check this out. He is a martial arts master as well. And this is actually going to play a little bit of a role in the story. So, studied Taekwondo, became a Kempo black belt, and did semi-professional kickboxing. I mean, when I first started seeing all the receipts, I was thinking, man, this guy's done a lot of stuff in a lot of different industries. He also built automated conveyor systems for Harley-Davidson, Parts Unlimited, Scholastic Books, ABC Supply, Yamaha, and many more million-pound machines with a million moving parts, employing hundreds of people over the years. I mean, this guy's had a lot of jobs. Designed and built IRS and IFS systems for pickups, street rods, SUVs. That on the screen there, one of his custom projects. And if that's not enough for you, he also makes custom weapons and musical instruments. I mean, if this doesn't remind you of Steven Seagal, I mean, look at this guy. I mean, how many different jobs has this guy had? So he makes weapons and musical instruments. Martial arts master. Semi-professional kickboxer. I didn't ask him why he didn't go full pro. If he's in the chat, maybe he'll answer. You know who he looks like? He kind of looks like Mark Kerr. Like a young Mark Kerr, the MMA fighter. The Smashing Machine. I forgot how tall he said he was. Dave, if you're in the chat, what are you, 6'5"? Somewhere around there? Possibly even taller than Seagal. Some more custom... Oh, he also built the staircase to the beach. I mean, look at that. Homemade ukulele. And stand-up bass made out of junk in the garage. So quite a talented individual that has lived a very interesting life, and possibly one of the most integral pieces to the puzzle, the Stephen Avery puzzle in Corruptawak County. No shortage of corruption there. Go through a couple more images here. I mean, I've never really seen a bigger guy do these kinds of things on a motorcycle. South to West says based staircase builder. Dave in the chat says he's 6'4". So that's right around Seagal. I think Seagal's around 6'4", 6'4.5", somewhere around there. I think Dave might have Seagal beat when it comes to motorcycle stunts. I mean, obviously Seagal can just regularly ride a motorcycle. He's I forgot which movie. It was one or two movies. He actually rode one in the movie. But as far as motorcycle stunts or high-speed maneuvers, I think Dave Begatka might even have the one and only Steven Seagal beat. So, just establishing this guy, because a lot of people, whenever they see people posting about certain cases online, they immediately assume it's some kind of random nobody looking for attention of some kind. Clearly, this guy doesn't need it. Another custom bike right here. kind of a big guy to be doing that. So this guy's led a very interesting life, to say the least. Just to establish who this guy is before we get to his claims and eyewitness statements regarding the Avery case and other shady dealings going on in the area. And you know what? So looking at it, because he posted this. I have a clip of all of his claims from the occult. I think it was the occult Manitowoc episode, actually. So if anybody has any other questions here before we get into the interview. Any questions? All right, let's get started. Oh, actually, one more video here. He also sent me this video in terms of receipts here. One second, of the jet ski, because certain people were saying, oh, he's just randomly on a jet ski. He worked for a jet ski company in the area and then spent quite a lot of time jet skiing there. And here's 14 minutes of receipts that he sent here. One second. So, yeah, here's 14 minutes of jet ski action in Manitowoc. So he was very familiar with the entire area in Manitowoc. Bicycles, jet skis, it's all good. That looks really fun. I gotta get into this sport. I don't really see those kinds of jet skis anymore, though. Like the thin stand-up jet skis. They always looked more fun because they look easier to maneuver than the larger sit-down jet skis. I've been on the sit-down jet skis. Those are kind of fun, but I definitely got to get some of these stand-up jet skis. I mean, look at the receipts provided by Dave Bogatka. Because you got a lot of bootlicking coincidence theorist goofs who are hallucinating that Bogatka is either lying for attention, must be mistaken. I mean, the amount of receipts here. And this is going to play a role when Dave's going to describe the story, the timing, everything here. Because if this was some random guy from outside of the area, yeah, I mean, with these facts and figures. But this guy, Dave's a local, and he had been jet skiing that entire area. Very familiar with it. Man, that does look like fun, though, doesn't it? Manitowoc gets some decent waves there, too. Those are some decent waves. Does anybody else have a strong urge to go jet skiing right now? I don't know. Is jet skiing in the 80s more fun than jet skiing today? Very possible. Everything's more fun in the 80s. No shortage of receipts here. Oh, wow, that was big. Whoa. All right, so let's get into this now that all the receipts have been provided. Let's get into it. South to West asks, he dead? No, Dave Bogatka is very much alive. And here is the exclusive interview with Dave Bogatka. So we have a special guest today on MindShock here, the one and only Dave Bogatka. Did I pronounce that correct?
Yes, you did.
Bogatka. So for the people who don't know who you are, if you could give a brief intro, and then we'll kind of get deeper into your full story.
I'm from Manitowoc County, Wisconsin. I lived in Two Rivers, and I was unlucky enough to be on the beach the day that Stephen Avery supposedly raped Penny Bernstein. And that's kind of how I got connected with this whole thing. Other than that, I'm just kind of a regular guy. Worked my most of my life and had a recreational motorcycle racing career, and that's about it.
Yeah, so I was actually just touching up on some of the details. So there's a couple of points of interest regarding your time in Manitowoc, and we're going to get into a lot of it in typical MindShock fashion, obviously, with logic and reason at the forefront. Doesn't seem to be a thing in the mainstream media. And what did you think of the Making a Murderer doc? Before we get into all that, what did you think, as someone who lived in Manitowoc for how many years was it?
41 years.
Oh, wow. Okay, so 41 years in Manitowoc. What did you think of the Netflix documentary Making a Murderer?
Well, I knew it was going to come out. I had heard about it. So I made my videos explaining what happened before it even came out. So that people couldn't say I was like jumping on a bandwagon or something. And my video was, if you ever watch it, it's gone now because of YouTube. But it was accurate. It's basically what my statement says that still exists on the internet of what happened. So
Yeah, so my biggest
when I I'm sorry. And when it came out, I thought it was right on. You know what I mean? It was, exactly what happened. I watched the whole trial, and during the trial, I was like, oh my God, you know what I mean? They're doing it again. It was something.
So as someone who I came into all of this late. So pretty much when I made the first Stephen Avery videos, Stephen Avery, the MindShock Stephen Avery podcast, that was quite a few years. That was probably when season two, even somewhere around season two. And I was coming into it completely blind. I knew nothing about the case. I had seen maybe, some internet ads about it. I knew absolutely nothing. And what people have said interesting watching the podcast series is in the first few episodes, because I don't jump to any conclusions. I wasn't assuming he was guilty or innocent. I wasn't assuming there was or wasn't corruption. But after spending just a few hours going through the documents of the case, it became so obvious that this was either complete incompetency, corruption, or a combination of both. Most likely a little bit of both. And it was just so shocking. And when I went back and rewatched the documentary again, for people that say it's so biased against Manitowoc County law enforcement, in my opinion, it was biased in their favor because it only exposed, in my opinion, from an outsider, approximately 1% of the corruption going on.
Yeah, that sounds about right. It I don't know how anybody can say that they weren't fair to the other side. Like Ken Kratz and stuff. I mean, he completely blew it. They say Ken says that they left out, stuff that I can't think of anything that they left out that was relevant that Ken Kratz can come up with. You know,
Well, they left out a lot of stuff that putting him in a bad light. Like they were very
well,
favorable. Yeah.
yeah, but that's it.
So there were some rumors. I mean, I've posed this question before on Reddit and elsewhere on social media. It's very shocking to think that anybody actually thinks that was an above board investigate. Either the Beer, I don't know how to pronounce it. Is it Bernstein or Bernstein?
Bernstein, my best
Bernstein.
pronunciation. Yes.
Okay, Bernstein. Both in that case and in the Hallback case, I don't understand how anybody could think that this was an above board, regardless of who's innocent or guilty, how it was an above board investigation. I mean, that's just shocking to me.
Yeah, they were real similar. That's why I said when I was watching the second trial, I was like, it was like the same thing all over again with a couple details changed. He's guilty and that's it, and he's guilty, and everybody shut the hell up. Because he's guilty.
It's just this might be one of the most shocking cases because the people that say, oh well, they wouldn't frame the guy or you know they literally did it in the same people. A lot of the same people did it before when there wasn't $36 million on the line for a lawsuit, but somehow now they wouldn't do it when there's even more at stake, both monetarily and their egos. And like I said, I've posed this question: how can anybody who's not friends or family of Manitowoc law enforcement, how could they think that this is all normal? I mean, it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, well, you got like a man hater crowd. Women that hear about Stephen Avery's life. He wasn't exactly the greatest guy in the whole world, and they hear that he burned the cat and he was abusive to whatever whoever, and they just right away he's guilty. You know what I mean? They just can't see it any other way than he's got to be guilty because he did this other stuff. And that doesn't make any sense.
So that's another problem I had with the documentary. Stephen Avery, according to Yanda's signed confession, Avery wasn't the one who physically picked up the cat and threw it in the fire either. And it
Yeah,
was Yanda. And the
yeah,
documentary was so biased. I mean, I said this so many times. It was actually biased against Avery because there were so many opportunities where there was exculpatory information that they chose not to go with, like the cat incident, for example. Not that that incident would have anything to do with anything, because there's plenty of, unfortunately, there are people who abuse and kill animals. That doesn't mean, and even if they killed other humans, that doesn't mean they killed this particular human, Teresa Hallback, of which I don't know what your opinion is on her, whether she's still alive or she was still alive at the time Avery was arrested and was either killed later or. Yeah, I mean, this is just a really bizarre case. I don't know. I don't really know what to think about that.
I don't know, but if I was gonna guess, I'd say she's still alive. It's all big scam. They're like jokers. They love to pull this shit off. And the better they screw people over, the more they get to laugh about it. You've heard of the jesters in the knights of whoever,
The court
the
jester, yeah.
Mason,
Yeah.
the jesters. It's like a club within a club, and they're
Oh,
the
oh, oh,
tricksters.
I gotcha. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and they're the tricksters, and the better they can trick, the more bragging rights they got. So, like, if she's still alive and they convicted him of murder, just think that's like a double double.
Yeah, yeah. What do you think? Because I thought this was kind of interesting too. Bernstein, she apologized to Avery after the fact. There were certain connections that were brought up in reference to, was it her husband and other law enforcement?
I don't know how involved, but they live next door to Kasurik supposedly and were
Yeah,
friends with
yeah, yeah.
that. But
There was
yeah,
also rumors of some kind of involvement with the club, which we'll get into in a moment.
yeah.
Um, Yeah, so this is really dark stuff, and a lot of coincidence theorists, as I'm sure you've heard me call them many times, no matter how many connections, no matter how much evidence, they're going to write it all off as coincidence and make fun of the so-called conspiracy theorists who are simply corruption aware. Corruption exists in the world. The question is exactly how much and exactly where. But maybe now's a good time to kind of go back all the way to the beginning, if you don't mind, kind of going over your early life in Manitowoc, and then the bar situation and all of your run-ins with the club.
Hmm. All right. When I was a kid, there was a cop who was friends of my mother. My mother was a single mother who would come over and kick her ass and pull shit. He was claiming her to be his. He was married, but it was like his concubine. And it got so bad that the cops, he was a cop, and it got so bad that they couldn't let him do it anymore. And we had to go into hiding when I was a kid. We had to go up north to this retreat. The Catholics are totally involved in all this shit. We had to go up there and hide out until they located him because he had gone crazy, you know. And I was like, well, we're going to see some justice here. He's going to finally get in trouble for all the shit he pulled over by our house. And nothing ever happened. It was just like, oh, that poor guy. Well, he's not a cop anymore, but, it never happened anyways. So I kind of got a bad taste in my mouth right off the bat.
And
For the,
approximately what year was that?
it had been in the 70s, in the early 70s. I
Okay.
was just a kid. I mean, a little like 7-year-old kid.
And so is your family originally from the Manitowoc area going back a
Oh
ways?
yeah. Well, I don't know that much about him, but at least one or two generations.
Okay. And have you heard anything from family members, friends, family, like rumblings around town or anything growing up, or
Yeah,
about?
a lot of them are really pissed at me.
Okay. So so okay, so that was the first situation. That was like the first, I guess, red flag we would call it, of some of the darkness going
My
on.
yeah, my experience, my learning, of how it all works around there.
And then so as you're growing up at a certain point, maybe go over like what, the years before the bar and then opening the bar.
Well, I guess the best, I'd start with at the beach. I was working at a gas station, which was right up the road from the beach, and I had a jet ski rental business. And I was back and forth to the beach, and I had connections to the beach. So I was down there all the time. And I was decided I was going to go jet skiing this day. And my boss says to me, who's, probably connected, says to me, well, you're going to see a lot of cops today. And I was like, well, what are you talking? We had gotten, and people were complaining about the jet skis, and they were calling the police on us because of the noise, So I went down there jet skiing, and I was down there, and I was noticed that there was a lot of cop activity, and I even knew the undercover cop cars looked like, and there was several of them going by in like their drug unit or whatever they call it back then, and it just seemed like, I don't know, weird. And then Mr. Bernstein, he comes up. I saw him walk up to my friend. I was jet skiing, and I saw him talking to my friend, so I came in, And he said that his wife was missing and he didn't know what to do. And he asked if we could go look for her, if I could go ride my jet ski at the beach and look for her. So I was like, yeah, I can, I could do that. But he said just he was going to go call the cops. And back in the days before cell phones, he had to drive to a liquor store, which isn't too far away, and call the cops. And the cops were there like that. Wow, they, I mean, immediately. And Troopers cop shows up. I know the cop. His name's Charlie Clark or something like that. And he says to me, Dave, I don't know if this is a good idea. I'm like, what do you mean? I said, it doesn't. I can ride my jet ski at the beach and look for this woman, and the dude, the husband, he was there and he was like, yeah, yeah, he seemed concerned. So I took my jet ski and I rode up the beach and I went at least 7 miles because I went to where Melarge Creek is and I didn't see her. And I saw some people and I asked them if they saw this woman. They had given me a description. She had a blue bikini on her, green or something. And they said they had seen her and she was going the other way. So I turn around and I'm riding my jet ski back towards town. And all of a sudden I see her running over the sand dunes. Along the beach, there's big sand dunes, and then there's woods behind the sand dunes. So I see her running like she's on fire over the sand dunes, and just like the biggest steps. And I turned and I landed my jet ski on the beach, and she ran past me, covered in blood and snot, and I don't know, and ran to some people that were just happened to be standing there on the beach with a white towel. These people with the white towel, they give her the towel, and her husband comes. The cops and the husband had walked up the beach a ways to where this all happened, and her husband come running up, and they were upset. They seemed legitimately upset. I was upset. I never imagined anything like this, and I'm standing there, and the cops are standing there, and nobody was really doing anything. So I like ran to the top of the sand dunes. I know the whole area. I could have ran down anybody, you know. So I run to the top of the sand dunes and I get up there and the cops are screaming at me, get back here, get back here. You can't go up there. There's a crime scene. We got people over there. So I get to the top of the sand dunes and there's a guy that looks just like whatever his name is there that supposedly raped her after the end. Gregory
Alan.
Allen.
Alan,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, with a leather jacket over his arm, standing there looking really guilty. You know what I mean? Looking at me all buggy eyed. And I look, and there's more people kind of sifting off into the woods that I couldn't really make out. And there's another guy laying on the sand dunes with a video camera. This is in 1985, so video cameras are big, So he's got it on his shoulder, and he's over, I don't know, 20, 30 feet, and he's videoing what's going on the beach. And the cops are screaming at me, so I'm like, all right, I come back down to the cops, and that was about it for me. I knew the one cop was Bill Bureau. He came, and the other one was Charlie. And I got on a jet ski and I left. And I went back down to the jet ski area. And we waited down there, and they took Bernstein back. They put her in the ambulance, and then they split. So that was about the end of the day. I don't even remember if I filled out a statement. I think Charlie told me I didn't need to because I didn't see anything. I was like, okay, I didn't see anything, and that's about it for that day.
Okay, so just a couple questions here. So how old were you at this time?
19.
Oh, wow. And how long had you been doing the jet ski business?
That was the first year, probably. Yeah, it was the first year. So it had been that summer.
So you had been, yeah. So like you said, you were very familiar with the entire area.
Well, I'd walked them. I grew up there. I knew every trail. I could have ran down anybody in them woods.
Okay. Now my first question, so a couple questions because this is a little bit more detailed than I read about before. So you're saying there was a bunch of people there that could not have been there unless they already knew what was going down.
Yeah, and I've gone back there and I've walked it, and there's no way they'd have been there.
So for the people that aren't from the area, so you're saying this is quite a distance from anything else.
Far enough, to to make it there. I don't know. I don't think they could do it. There's no way they could have been there.
Like what kind of distance are we talking from like major roads or the police station or?
Well, there's a dead end road where you walk from one of the entryways to these sand dunes, and I don't know, it's a quarter, half mile, maybe
Oh,
a little
wow.
more through the
Okay.
dunes,
Yeah, so that would take a while to walk.
Yeah.
Um, okay, and how close were you to Alan when you sighted him?
Uh, 20 yards or less.
Oh wow. So
He
this is
was
a
right there picking something up. They were like picking stuff up. He was digging around at something.
so positive 100% positive ID that was him.
No, I can't say for sure because I didn't know who he
Okay.
was and I didn't know what he looked like
Okay, yeah.
until I found out that he was actually the perpetrator. But my
Okay,
memory
gotcha.
looked
Yeah,
a
yeah.
lot like, and he
So
had a leather
you saw a mysterious guilty looking guy.
yeah, with a leather jacket, and supposedly the dude had a leather jacket.
Yeah, yeah. So it's kind of weird because supposedly they had Alan under surveillance for quite some time and they pulled the surveillance just that day.
Yeah, mm,
How does that make sense?
it doesn't. You know what I
I
mean?
mean, I don't, okay, so again, we're just speculating here, obviously. What do you think happened in terms of like, do you think more? So the guy that was filming with the camera, was he with the police or you couldn't tell?
I'm pretty sure it was Bob Ziggebauer.
And who is that?
He's the county supervisor right now. He's been involved in all sorts of businesses. His parents owned a great big, huge liquor business, liquor distribution business. They owned a great couple of big bars and businesses.
So
And
is he? I don't know if I'm allowed to ask this question. Is he in the club?
well, I don't know, but I think he is. He came and talked to me. We'll
Okay.
get to that. You
So
know,
so okay. So just if you had to guess, I mean, again, we're not claiming anything is true or untrue. If you had to guess, would you? I mean, I don't even. This is just so. I mean, I've never heard of anything like this before. So did it seem like the cops were there to witness Alan assault Bernstein and film it?
yeah, I don't know for sure that there were other cops back there. That's just what the cops told me. I
Yeah,
don't know who, other than the guy with the camera, I think was Ziggebauer. I'm not saying this for sure, but
yeah.
I'm pretty sure. Because, and the other people I didn't get a good look at them, they were just sifting off into the woods. And there were several.
So, and to your knowledge, so because my first question with all of this is, what would Bernstein's testimony look like? Because was she claiming that it was just her one assaulter there?
Yeah, her story doesn't make any sense at all. She
Yeah,
doesn't,
that's yeah.
it doesn't. She says she was wandering around in the dunes and those people found her. And she ran right to them. I mean, they had a towel thing right there. She didn't have a top on, but she had her pants, her like bikini bottoms on. And she was dinged up. She looked pretty bad. I was I was shocked.
So yeah, this is so hard because if she's being assaulted, I mean, again, hopefully this doesn't happen to anybody, but I could imagine she might not necessarily notice if people were, I don't know, 20, 30 yards away. She might not necessarily see them depending on the layout or depending on what's going on with her.
You couldn't see over the dunes. I don't think that you would know those people were there. I don't
So
know.
she basically, I mean, again, I've never really seen an in-depth interview. So she was so traumatized, she didn't think anything of it that there happened to be all these people there, somebody waiting with a towel right after. Or how long was that after the assault, or we don't know.
I don't know. It couldn't have been too long,
Right.
but
So this is all just very strange because do you think Stephen Avery was already pre-selected to take the fall for this before the assault happened?
well, there was kind of a beef going on with them. Penny Bernstein was friends with Stephen Avery's wife at the time, and after Stephen Avery got locked up, Stephen Avery's wife told Penny that she saved her life by getting Stephen locked up because he was going to kill her.
Okay. I mean, there's also the long-standing feuds that a lot of people seem to ignore, like the land feuds and even the salvage yard feuds with like police officers who had salvage yards, and they
Oh
wanted
yeah, there was
Avery
direct
property.
competition there.
Yeah, they wanted the Avery salvage yard property, And there's a whole bunch of incidents going back, I mean, decades. I went over them. I did a whole episode on uh I actually did two on just the corruption and all the cases going back about 100 years. And it's just nonstop. What's scary to think about, though, a lot of people say, oh, well, that's just a bad area. But what's really scary, if you start looking at a lot of areas all over the US, it's not really, I mean, I think Manitowoc might be worse than a lot of places, but a lot of places are not clean at all. They have a lot of this stuff going back many decades as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and it could have been a beef with his dad. They take shit
Yeah.
out on people's kids too. So it could have been, they had a beef with Alan, and Steve was being a shit to this woman, and they were like, we're gonna get rid of him and save the whole world.
Do you think, okay, here's another question. I might as well say it now because this is one of my biggest questions. How much does Stephen Avery really know about a lot of the corruption in the air? Because it seems like he would have to know a lot more than he's said so far, or at least he said publicly.
Yeah, he's got to know about it. I mean, but I don't know. He's not a real bright guy either. But I don't know. I've never talked to him.
I know I'm asking you to guess a lot, obviously, but these are just the questions that come to mind because,
That's cool.
yeah, it just seems like he had to have known more than he said. And listening to some of the phone calls, I was going over some of the phone calls and the phone call transcripts from jail. He's actually very careful with his words a lot of times, especially with his sister. He didn't even want her kids to get in trouble for selling drugs or whatever. There were certain insinuations. He was so careful in some of those conversations, like deceptively so.
Well, he should know the crime game by now, right?
Yeah.
And he never broke on his phone calls. I've listened to all his phone calls, and the kid Brendan,
Yeah.
and neither one of them has ever admitted to it or anything. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
The Brendan Dassey interrogation, it's so hard to watch. Like I can't even really I can only watch little bits and pieces of it. It's just too difficult to watch what they do to that kid. And it's so crazy how anybody can defend that, especially now, because all of the information, I did a whole episode on this with Scott Peterson on how many innocent people are in prison and how many, false confessions. Like the younger you are, the more likely you are to falsely confess. And then once you start getting into the actual statistics, you have people that have been locked up, maybe for a crime they did commit. They're saying they've falsely confessed not one, not two, maybe even 4 or 5 times in the past, just from the nature of the police interrogation. So to the people that think, I mean, it's so obvious Dassey's trying not to be in trouble and tell them what he thinks they want to know because he doesn't even understand the severity of the situation.
He asked his mother what the truth meant in
Yeah, that's
one of
crazy.
his jail calls. Well, what is it's just like, if you listen to his jail, I listen to all his jail calls, and it's just aggravating. I
Yeah,
mean,
it's tough.
that kid had no guidance. That kid had nobody to talk to. His lawyer, whoever the hell they were completely against him. You know, it's horrible.
Yeah. That's actually one of the reasons like I can't even it's kind of hard for me to even focus on his side too much in the podcast series. I know I should because it's such a miscarriage of justice, but it's difficult. It's difficult to go through all that, especially with just the constant flood of I call them bootlickers who they just can see no wrong in any of the actions of any law enforcement, even when they're berating a clearly uh distraught and not mentally all there child, basically. And they're defending that. It's just, it's really tough. But going back to Avery now, so you think it's
Well, just with
possible?
Brendan, one more thing with Brendan. I
Yeah.
knew Brendan's dad since we were kids.
Oh,
We
wow.
know each other, and it's really weird that there's no jail calls that I've ever heard that I don't know. I don't think that of his dad calling him in jail. So that's just a weird thing that I don't know either. So,
Wow. What do you make of
and
that?
he's married to Stephen Avery's ex woman, the one that was with him when he got locked up the first time.
This is yeah, it's quite a it gets a little convoluted trying to track some of Avery's and his sister's relationships and all that. Uh
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, nothing in this case really adds up, but so you think it's possible Avery was pre-selected to take the fall for the Bernstein?
I think the whole thing was created to get rid of him, you know.
And do you think so? In again, in the post Epstein era, I did a whole episode on Illuminati humiliation rituals and all of this stuff. Do you think it's possible she was kind of offered up as some kind of sacrifice or something of that nature by the club?
Oh, for sure. Either she was in on it or they just did it to her without her knowing, really. She pissed them off or something. You know, because they're
Yeah,
local business too, you know, so they all feud with each other. Who knows what their
yeah.
actual.
So immediately afterwards, obviously there's just the hoopla over the case. I mean, Stephen Avery couldn't have even mathematically made it based on his alibi. He was at a restaurant with like 15 witnesses. The math doesn't even add up for him to have committed the crime. Just but back in 85, pre widespread internet, you could kind of sort of see how people can, small town corruption can get away with some of this stuff.
Oh,
What's
sure.
my
Penny Bernstein's family owned the local newspaper, so I'm sure they told the whole story, right? You know.
Yeah. Yeah, so but going to 2005, so Avery finally gets out. Avery gets out. He's got this huge lawsuit pending. And well, actually, let's go in order a little bit. So, do you want to go over your bar story and your
Yeah,
run-ins with
well,
the
there's
club?
a little bit before that. Now, like right after this thing happened on the beach, I'm at work at this gas station, and my boss says to me, "Hey, Ziggy wants to talk to you." I'm like, Ziggy? It didn't even, I had heard the name before, Bob Ziggebauer, and he was called Ziggy, but I didn't have any clue on why he would, I didn't recognize him at the beach that day. I didn't, I just, after seeing him, I thought, it could have been him. But my boss says, he wants to talk to you. I'm like, so halfway through the day, here Bob Ziggebauer shows up, and we're standing right in the front area of this gas station. It's like you pumped gas for people, you know what I mean? So I was the gas pumper, and my boss took over for me and went out and pumped gas, and I stood in the office with Bob, and he's like, Dave, we want to invite you to join our club here. We have all these parties, and we like to party. You like to party. We like to party. And he had these Polaroid pictures, and I'm like, he's showing me these Polaroid pictures of their parties for their club, and he said that just about all the people in business and government in there are in the club, and and he shows me these Polaroid pictures, and it's homosexual pictures. One person was a teacher I knew, another one was a football coach I knew, and they're in a hotel room and they're doing homosexual things, and I'm like, put them away. What the hell is wrong with you? I was like, I see you later, kind of like, I just, it didn't make any sense to me on, why they would all of a sudden want me to join this club. I had that jet ski rental business, so maybe I was a business owner, but I mean, I was nobody, and not connected to anything, other than the assholes that used to kick my mom's ass, and it was really weird, that they came to me with those pictures.
Do you think they just went around and tried to recruit a bunch of people and it wasn't, or do you think they just specifically targeted only a couple people?
I think they knew I saw too much on the beach that day, and they wanted to get a hold of
Okay.
me. That's the only thing that makes sense to me.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay, so then what happens?
Well, a year or so later, when I'm 20 years old, I get this great idea. I'm a bouncer and I'm a martial artist and all this shit. I'm gonna buy a bar in Manitowoc and I'm gonna run a bar. The drinking age was 21, but I got grandfathered in when I was 18. They changed it like 2 days before I turned 18 to 19 and then to 21. But I was able to own a bar and have a bar license at 20 because I was grandfathered in. So I went through a whole bunch of trouble and I bought this bar and I opened it up, and it was a basement bar. I mean, it was a dive bar, but I'm running it for a while, and all of a sudden, these people come in and tell me I got to join this club. If you don't join this club, you're gonna, you're not gonna be in the club. And they started to get like more insistent, like you have to do this. You have to go down to the basement of the Eagles Club and talk to these people. They never said names, but these people, Tony Soprano talks, that kind of bullshit, and I was like, I'm not doing that. I'm not. And then they sent another guy who was a little more persuasive, you know what I mean? And explain, I'm like, why should I? It's like, well, you kick up, and then they throw you bones, like they'll have a party at your place or whatever. It's all. And I was like, I didn't want to be involved with these assholes because I knew who the assholes were and I had no respect for them. The things with my family and stuff. I just wanted to be a sole business owner. I didn't think I needed any help. And then the guy who was in the picture, the Polaroid pictures, the guy who was the football coach, he comes in my bar and he's super serious. He kind of knew me because he was my football coach and whatever. But he's like, you gotta do this or else something really bad is going to happen. And he's screaming at me. And I was like, get the fuck out of here. I didn't make much more of it. I didn't really run in this bar because I had the worst luck in the whole world. I mean, shit was going wrong all the time. People breaking in, stealing stuff. I was getting sued. The landlord, uh, people I had apartments upstairs, and the slumlord division was after me. I mean, somebody slipped on the sidewalk and they were suing me. So I found this woman that was running another bar, her bar was closed. Her name was Marianne Deneen. And she said that, well, first she started bartending for me, and then she wanted to be the bar manager. So I let her be the bar manager, and she was running it, and she was doing my taxes and everything, and she was nice to me. She was an
All right,
alcoholic.
hold on a second. Let's split it up with her before we get to her in a moment. So that must have been really like mind warping for you as basically you're a young guy. This guy's randomly coming up to you showing you these weird Polaroids. I mean, what was kind of going through your head? Like, this is such a weird. I mean, obviously the guy's weird, but about the area in general.
Well, another thing he said to me is, don't, you could see I was kind of turned off. And he said to me, don't worry, Dave, sometimes we get girls too. So I was like, oh, well, good thing. But
This is like listening to this. It's like a horror movie, right? You have like it's like
yeah,
it's an incremental increase of weirdness.
for sure. For sure.
And you were like, at any point where you kind of just like, I should probably just get out of this town and never come back.
No, I felt like I belonged there. I felt that I had a right to do what I was doing. And
So
I,
how long were you into martial arts?
I was before that, just a couple of years, but I was into it until I broke my spine in 99.
Yeah, I think what a lot of normies might not get is, I've been into martial arts a long time too. When you're a martial artist, like, you don't necessarily think the same way as normal people, because like I've been in some shady, nothing like this, but I've been, in my share of shady situations. And looking back on it, all I can think is like, I was so young and stupid. Like, that could have gone so much worse. But when
Well,
you're
for sure.
young, you think you're invincible, especially as a martial artist. So I guess that, you were kind of, it didn't throw you as much as it might have thrown more of a normie, I guess. Because just the weird, because a lot of people are scared off pretty easily. Like, a couple things go wrong, somebody yell, I mean, they're gone. But you were kind of determined to stand your ground.
Yeah, and you got dumb. I was dumb.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah.
Can I say
So
one more thing about the beach?
yeah, yeah.
Um, you asked about if the police could have been, or whoever it was back there could have made it back there in the time. And the jet ski goes about 35 miles an hour, and it was only about 7 miles. And I went straight up there and straight back. And if the cop who got called, who told me not to go, had just called it in because he just found out what's happening, there's no way that they could have had people on that back road walking in already. And even then, it's not like a manicured trail. I mean, you're climbing almost over
Well,
trees and walking through dunes. So,
well, not only that, but how would he have been notified?
well, the original cop got called from the liquor store by Bernstein's wife, her husband. I'm sorry, Bernstein's husband.
That she was missing?
Yeah, that she went running on the beach and didn't come back.
Okay. Yeah, that's a strange situation. Also, I had one more question regarding all of the incidents going on with with the bar, I know you kind of glossed over a bunch of them, but were they kind of the more, are you the type, was your personality kind of the more that goes wrong, the more determined you're going to be?
Well, yeah, I was fighting them.
Yeah. So that kind of makes sense because, yeah, not knowing that, it almost seems just a little strange that you wouldn't have just left. But yeah, if that's your personality, then that kind of all makes sense. Okay. So let's get into Marianne now.
Okay, Marianne, she was running the bar, doing my taxes, doing okay, and then she wanted to buy it on a land contract, but she owed money to the club from this other bar. She had borrowed, I don't remember, 50, 30,000 bucks from them. And she had to pay them back before she could do anything with, taking over my loan or how we were going to work her buying the bar from me and me getting out of it. And so we had agreed that she could just work on paying them off, and then we would work on her buying the bar from me. But I let her change the liquor license to her name that year, and she changed the name of the bar to Madhouse from Dave's Dungeon. But the year that year, I went to go deer hunting with my dad, and that's a different. There's more to that too, but I left on like a Tuesday, and she died on Thursday, and I didn't know anything about it. I was gone deer hunting for a week, and then I drove home, kind of like I got in a fight. I was pissed, and I drove home. And then when I got home, my mom told me that Marianne had died. I'm like, what do you mean Marianne died? Oh, about a week ago. And I was like, really? So I called a friend of mine to go to the bar with me right away. It was like 6 or 7 in the morning, and I was like, oh my God, I can't imagine what happened to my bar. So I go down to the bar, and all my shit's gone. There's like a couple open bottles of booze. There's a couple cans of beer or something, but I had money. I had check cashing money for people that would come in. Third shift would come in, like from the local factories, and want to cash their paychecks and drink. So it was like a morning bar too. But of course, it wasn't open. But all that shit was gone. And I'm down there. I'm just like, this figures. And then this Marianne's boyfriend, husband, I think it was her boyfriend, comes in the bar and he's like, "Did you hear what happened?" And I'm like, "No, I don't know anything." And I said, "What happened?" And he said that he found Marianne in the house, and she was covered in blood. And well, I got to back up. I mean, before I left for deer hunting, Marianne told me that these people were really harassing her, and she was really afraid, and she was sleeping with a gun next to her bed. And I told her when I left, this is how stupid I was. I told her, well, when I get back from deer hunting, we'll go to the cops. And she says to me, they are the cops. And that was kind of like the last thing they
Wait,
said.
wait, and what year is this?
This is 1980, 1980, seven, probably.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean,
Uh,
that's again one of these lines that's right out of a movie.
88, uh,
It's so
87.
unbelievable. Like now it's kind of, I guess less people might bat an eye, but back then, I mean, that's a little bit more of an unbelievable statement. Like, what was going through your mind when she said that?
You know, I didn't believe it. I thought, well, if there is some cops in it, we'll go to the other cops or something.
Yeah.
Well, fuck, we'll go to the FBI. God damn it. You know what I mean? That's how I thought. You know what I mean?
And
I thought
just
that I
real
had
quick,
a chance.
what were your parents' impression of just what was going on with you, the bar, Beernston, just the local police, all of that? Did they know about a club, or what was their impression of the everything?
They hadn't really. I don't know. My mom and dad were. My dad left when I was 2. Okay, so I didn't even know him until I was 18. So it's just like a big blank right there. And my mom was a single mother, and then she married the cop who kicked her ass, who was coming to the house.
Oh wow.
Yeah, no shit, huh?
So your dad was not from the Manitowoc, or he
No,
was from the
he was from
Manitowoc.
no. He lived 7 miles away from me, and I
Okay.
never even knew what he looked like. I had pictures cut in half, that kind of thing. I didn't know what he looked like until I was 18.
Okay. Now, did
My
did you
mom would
have a
say things. my mom would say things like, everybody's got a good side except your father. I mean, so it was just, and she
Wow.
kind of mind washed me. Like people who wear cowboy boots, they were gay, or truck drivers were bad people. And, my dad was a truck driver. He wore cowboy boots. So just about everything about, I was kind of mind fucked. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm just trying to kind of get an idea of just what people thought about the area. Like, did you just older, like maybe older people you had talked to, locals, like what were their impression of all of this?
Well, kind of the club was kind of a rumor, kind of like everybody kind of knew about it. And another thing that happened in high school was um, everybody knew who the club king was at the time. The grand poobah of the club, and I went to school with his son. And my mom had worked with him when she was like a 18 or 19-year-old. She was like an office assistant or some shit. And when I was in high school, he was telling my friends, these other kids, what a whore my mother was, you know, and how they used to all, you know, do stuff with my mother at this place where he worked. So I really had a grudge against these fuckers, you know.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, a lot of this is kind of echoing even almost like not really so much. I mean, you can give your thoughts on it. Not so much the satanic side of it, but with satanic ritual abuse that's kind of widespread in many areas, not
That
just the country, but the
satanic
world.
shit came in a lot later. I didn't have any
Yeah.
idea that it went that far. You know what I mean? It was like a good old boys club, and they took care of everything. Like when Stephen Avery got arrested, a friend of mine who knew the cops said, "Well, don't worry, the good old boys are taking care of him. He did it, and they're
Yeah.
going to jail." I mean, that was stuff that people said. It was like
Yeah.
a unspoken spoken thing.
Yeah. So going back to Marianne, so the timeline
Oh,
here.
I go, the dude, her boyfriend comes to the bar, and he asked me if I knew anything. I said no, and he said that he found her in her bed, covered in blood, with the gun next to her. And he called the police, and the police came and locked him up. They put him in cuffs. They thought that he did it. They accused him of killing her. And then they found out that she died of a heart attack, and that was what they determined, that she died of a heart attack. She did have a bad heart,
So
covered in blood.
what so what were you thinking at this point?
I was just defeated. You know what I mean? I gave up. You know what I mean? I was just like, the bar went into bankruptcy. Another thing that happened, I found out later, was they had a party at my bar after, like, for her wake or whatever, after she was buried, and Bob Ziegebauer was behind the bar giving away all my shit.
Oh, that's messed up.
Yeah, at the party, they had this big party, and yeah, and they gave away all the shit at the bar, and there was there's other more than him, but it's something else.
So you didn't think, lawsuit or what you were thinking?
Yeah, I just gave up. My dad, I had started working for my dad. He had a trucking company, and I was just like, well, I'm just gonna let this all go. You know what I mean? And move on.
So
I thought she
what
died. I thought she just died of a heart attack. I kind of believed that she aspirated blood when she had a heart attack, which can happen. But
well, the timing is definitely interesting with all of that, what was going on. How many you've had, obviously you had a lot of conversations with her, right? What
well, she was a good friend of mine. She really liked me.
so what how much about the club did she tell you?
Uh, that it was real, and she said that I better have a lot of guns in my family. And that was another thing that didn't make any sense to me at the time. You know what I mean? I better have a
So
lot of.
yeah, this must be really, really crazy for you, after all this time, hindsight, looking back with 2020 hindsight on how that all unfolded. It must be just really crazy for you because like knowing what you know now and at the time living it without all of that knowledge of what was going on. I mean, just listening to it secondhand, I mean, it's kind of scary.
Yeah, and I've had people contact me that knew Marianne and were connected to her, and they believe me. You know what I mean? They don't believe that she just died.
So
No, she's buried.
yeah, so what's the next in your story? Like, what's the next point that happens? So you're now trucking, so you're not local, you're not always there, or
Well, after yeah, Marianne was running the bar, and I was working for my dad's trucking company and working for the Army Corps of Engineers. You know, I was running 3 jobs trying to keep the bar and everything floating. You know.
okay, so after all that happened where they gave away all your stuff after she died, so now you have nothing to do with the bar anymore.
Yeah, I had to go into bankruptcy. I had to declare bankruptcy. All my
So
shit was
did you
gone.
have any other run-ins with the club in the interim before? Like, what's the next bullet point here when you saw Avery at the gas station, or are there more?
No, in the mid '90s, I was friends with some people. You know, when Zigbar told me everybody's in business around the area is in the club, you know what I mean? I started to kind of not. I started to stalk them. You know what I mean? I started to watch. I'd ride my bicycle around town. You know, I'd see things going on. They usually have a Thursday night meeting somewhere. You know, and I wanted to know what was going on. I wanted to know more about it. You know, and I was talking to some friends of mine who were affluent and from the area about the club, and they thought I wanted to join or something. You know, so I go to the bar one night. They had invited me to this place that was really close to my house. It was a supper club, and they're like, "Oh, we got a surprise for you. We got a surprise for you." And I was like, "Ooh, a surprise!" You know, they get drunk. Drunk as drunk can be. I mean, they're buying me drinks, and at the end of the night, they're like, "Yeah, come on down to the other end of the bar here, and we want to talk to you." You know, I walk down to the other end of the bar, and here it's the dude that was bad mouthing my mother, and the other club members. I'm pretty sure that the sheriff there was there. You know, the Herman, but I was drunk, really
Yeah.
drunk, and you know, I was like, I ain't joining your club. You know, f all you guys. You know what you did. You know, you bad mouthing my mother. You know, and I left. And my friends chased me down, and they're like, "Hey, you can't do this." I'm like, well, "Why? Why should I join them?" And they're like, "Jobs. You get jobs." You know, I'm like, "It's not worth it to me." You know what I mean? I had the same attitude as I had before. You know, so I left. And I guess it was a pretty big row because once you do something like this and they refuse, then there's rules about it. But I don't know, you know.
So were things more quiet after that, or were there still incidents after that?
Yeah, I feel I was messed with every time I turned around almost. I would every time I started my own mechanical contracting company later, and there's more. There's so much we could talk for hours about the contact I've had and the motorcycle shop I worked at. That's another good point. Um, the owner of the motorcycle shop I was friends with, I worked on his motorcycle racing team. I was a mechanic there for quite a while. And when these people would come to, when he had to pay them or whatever, they tribute, I think sometimes they would get a motorcycle. They'd be like, well, your tribute this month, they give him a brand new Harley Davidson to the club members. He told me he hated them. But he asked me to come in and be in the shop because if they knew somebody was there, then they wouldn't get weird on them.
What does get weird mean?
And I don't know. I think, you know, I mean, you know how these people work. You know that they have oral sex not for pleasure, but for conquer. You know what I mean? And
So you
sometimes,
think are you saying they threatened people into that, or
yeah, yes.
well, okay.
It's like I said, it's not a real sex. It's more of a conquer. It's like Diddy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's a
Yeah.
conquest. You're so low that you're gonna do this to me, and you're gonna like it.
Yeah, that's dark. That's dark. So there was just always weird stuff going on. What's the next bullet point you want to get to? Do you want to get to your Avery sighting, or
Um, like I said, I ran that mechanical contracting business. And anytime I took a job in Manitowoc County, I completely lost it, man. Somebody come right out of the blue, you know what I mean? And it would just go downhill, you know what I mean? And you know, I can make excuses for all the shit I screwed up in my life, but I don't think it was all my fault. You know what I mean?
a lot of
But
coincidences you're saying?
yeah, you know, but And then, like, well, Stephen Avery got loose. You know, in 2003 they let him out on November 11th or September 11th, whatever it was. And I was like, God damn, you know, that didn't make any sense to me. And then I started thinking about the beach, you know, and what happened on, and I was just kind of laying back to see, like, they were having their little inquiries and whatever. And I was just laying back to see what they would say actually happened with this, you know, incident on the beach and how this Gregory Allen guy actually did it, you know.
Yeah.
And during that time is when I saw him at the gas station. And it was on the night of he was supposedly creating mayhem and killing Teresa Halbach. It does. People don't want to believe it either. It's so weird. You know, that it was the night of Halloween, and me and my wife, we lived out in the country, and we took our bicycles in our pickup truck to town to go for a bicycle ride around town and look at Halloween decorations because it was Halloween, you know. So we went and parked our truck down by Walsh Field, which is real close to where I saw him, and we rode our bicycles around town until it was after dark sometime, I don't know. And we were coming back, and I saw Stephen Avery at the pumps at this gas station in a black F 250 or 350 pickup truck. We had a similar truck, you know. And I was like, I pulled it in and I said to Sandra, I said, there's that F and Stephen Avery. It's exactly what I said. I said, because I had heard all the shit about him living in his camper and his whatever in the front yard. And I had heard that he was kicking his new woman's butt and all the stories about him in his time, you know. So I didn't think I wanted to talk to him. But anyways, we stood there and he was filling up gas cans, red gas cans with gas on Halloween night. And me and my wife stood there, watched him fill up his gas cans. I'm pretty sure there was a young woman with him in the passenger seat. And I thought, well, he must be doing pretty good. He's got a new pickup truck, you know, he's got a young woman with him, you know, whatever, you know. And we left, and about a week later, everything came out about, you know, all the stuff that's supposed to happen and Teresa Halbach getting killed and whatever. So I called the cops. There was no way I was going to the station, but I called the cops from my house in Two Creeks twice and told them that I had seen him that night, and they said that they'd send a police officer to take a statement, and they never did. So we made a letter and explaining what we saw and what night it was and whatever, and we sent it to the Manitowoc County Police Department or County Sheriff's Department, and that was just about the end of that story. And you know, and then I moved to Texas shortly after, but
All
not
right.
because all.
Yeah, hold on. So let's uh let's back up a little bit. So you don't know who the young woman was that was with him,
No, and I didn't really look at it that close. You know what I
but
mean? I think
definitely not Teresa Hallback.
no, no, I didn't think
But
so.
it
But at
possi
the time, I thought it could have been them. You know what I mean? At the time,
yeah.
you know, I thought, oh goddamn, there he was, and he had her, and I was right there, and you know,
Yeah, so but you're unsure, could it have been one of his nieces or
I
family
think it
member?
was a Marie. I think it was his niece.
Okay.
That's what makes sense.
Okay. So what do you at this point now today, what do you think he was doing that night?
Yeah, it's really weird that he does. It sounds like a perfect alibi for him, right? Goddamn, I was at the gas station with my niece, right? But another thing I want to say is the woman that was working at the gas station saw him too, and a kid contacted me like years later that was at the gas station with his parents, and he even told me what pump he was at, so I know he saw him. You know,
Yeah, no, it seems like that was definitely him. Now, I think I might have asked you this before in comments or wherever. There's no security cameras at that gas station at that time.
there was, but it's
There,
long gone.
oh, there were security cameras.
Sure, sure, they had cameras.
So law enforcement could have potentially looked at those cameras.
You think they would have? Even, you know, I called them and told them, you know, you think they'd have been, oh, he was possibly at this place. Why don't you, you know, go check this stuff?
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy. So, okay, so the story about the bonfire is another mysterious thing. I did a whole video on the legend of the bonfire because originally supposedly there was no bonfire. It was only Redant who what's your opinion on Redant?
You know who his family is? You know, Radant Construction. I mean, they're huge.
So you think he made up the story about the bonfire?
Uh, I think that he is probably controlled by the club, right? I mean, when you're in a club, you say what they tell you to say.
Okay. Because I went through all of the initial statements, nobody mentioned any bonfire. And then it's funny because as soon as Redaunt makes that statement, on the re-interviews, all of a sudden there's a huge bonfire with flames as high as the garage that everybody conveniently failed to mention on their initial interviews. I always thought that was strange.
I knew Scott Toddick pretty good too, by the way.
Tadic, is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, Tadici.
Daichi. What's your
Yeah,
opinion of Scott?
I don't know. He's the shit, but I don't think he killed anybody.
Do you think he would cover information if he had it on who did, if it wasn't Avery?
I think he got made.
What do you mean?
I think that was his big moment.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so with the gas station, why so the other information we don't have, how often did Avery go to the gas station to fill up gas cans?
I got no idea.
No, I'm just saying, like, if we had that information, because if it was pretty often, so he obviously he did do bonfires, just supposedly not that night until everything got revamped. And then even Avery himself, what kind of doesn't make sense, it's almost like Stephen Avery himself, because initially there's no bonfire, and then it seems like he's kind of going with the bonfire story as well.
Yeah, once you say stuff, you can't really go back on it because you look like a liar. You know what I mean?
No, but he did.
So
I think he was either genuinely confused because he couldn't remember the day
yeah,
that the bonfire was at, and then he didn't really. It seemed like he didn't really make a stink about people claiming it was that night when it, even if it wasn't.
yeah. Well, I was kind of talking about him not saying it was him at the gas station.
So he said he wasn't at the gas station.
No, he says it was his kid. I've had people ask him, and I've never talked to him, but he says it's his son, and they look alike, and that's bullshit. I
So
don't
I
know.
had a theory. I had a theory. It wasn't exactly tongue in cheek that if Stephen Avery has a split personality, because
Yeah,
one of his personalities could be trying to frame himself. I'm just trying to explain all the actions of
well,
Stephen Avery.
okay. Now, if he was supposedly they were trying to get him for being with his minor niece, right? He was breaking
Yeah,
the law, being with his minor girl. Okay, is he going to admit he was with her? Because then he's admitting
that's
to a
it.
crime almost,
That's an
right?
interesting point. Even if he's innocent, he probably wouldn't want to admit he was with her because then he looks
Sure,
guilty.
it's just
Because
more trouble.
I
And the same
went
with that.
over. Yeah, I went over. They were talking about that on the TikTok Manitowoc subreddit. It seems like those charges could have kind of been made up as well. I didn't see anything damning in that direction.
Yeah.
Because there were
What
even in.
do you know about the burnt trailer house?
I'm not sure, but real quick, just with his niece, it seemed like law enforcement was pressuring her to make those statements.
Yeah,
From
she contacted me on Facebook and said that they made her say what she said.
Oh
She
wow,
was
I didn't
scared.
know that. Oh, so you're
Yeah.
confirming that? Okay, yeah, I didn't know that. So did she also confirm she was at the gas station with Avery that night?
No, she never told me anything about that. She just said that the stuff that she had to say in court or whatever, that
Right.
they told her she had to say it, that she was
I
forced to say it.
wonder. I wonder how the guilters explain that. So okay, so the burnt trailer. I vaguely remember
All
something
right.
about that.
They're having a little three-way love affair here, Steven and this girl and another guy. And Steve was pissed about this whole thing, right? And before this, Steve had told her, remember the sign with the address on Xander Road?
Yeah.
That's the place. Okay. He was gonna with his money, he was always bragging about the money he's gonna have. With his money, he was gonna buy her that place. I guess they had hung out there. They were partying out there or something. And he was gonna buy her that place because he loved her so much and all that stuff. And then she started going with this other guy, and he was pissed. And supposedly that night, in rage, he went and picked her up, and he was mad because they were, and he went out there and he burnt that place. And that's what he used the gas for, and that's why he doesn't want to admit.
Oh.
Oh,
Wow,
wait.
that's an interesting theory.
And when you're in Manitowoc County and you don't want to use that in your court case, you just let the insurance company pay for it. You know what I mean? You don't even bring it up. Oops, it was a fire, lightning, gasoline.
Wow. Okay, so this could potentially be a lot darker than I thought. So do you think so if law enforcement knew that he was out burning that place and he wouldn't admit it, is that why they tried to stitch him up the way they did?
Well, it was the same night they say that he killed her. So I mean, I think they had they had Teresa Hallbach was a confidential crime informant in Milwaukee or some shit. They had the person who had her job before the picture taking thing.
Yeah.
She was a state agent or something, FBI,
Yeah, I went
Wisconsin.
over yeah, I did a whole episode on that.
Yeah,
That was
they were staking
so
him out, man. They were going to take him
I
out.
have no
He was just
idea.
being
I
he
have
was just
no
being a
I
dumbass
yeah,
burning that place.
I
You
have
know,
no idea how coincidence theorists can rectify all of this information in this case as if I mean, how often it just doesn't make any sense. This case is just so wild with all of this stuff. Uh do you have any opinion on the Ricky Hofstadter thing?
oh yeah, yeah. He either got he either got run over by accident or on purpose by a club member. I was with a club member one night and we were drunk as fuck and we were driving around Sturgeon Bay and he owned the place and he was running stop signs, you know, just crazy driving. I'm like, you're gonna kill somebody, and it was like it's like a game to them. You know what I mean? They know if they kill somebody that it doesn't matter. That one cop, which one was it? He was at a bar with his ex girlfriend and her new boyfriend, and he followed them and ran them over on their motorcycle and got away with it. It was an accident.
What year was that?
That was in I think it was in the 80s.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, wow. Okay.
It's in the game. Running people
Yeah.
over is in the game. It's a kill. It's a brag. You get away with it. You know, you can tell all your friends, I ran him over and I killed him, and you know.
Wow. Okay. So back in the timeline here, so you saw Avery at the gas station, you submitted all the info, and at which point do you get out of the area?
Well, I we moved in 2007 in October, and not because of any of this. I just I had closed my mechanical contracting business because my back had completely failed me, and I opened up a aftermarket motorcycle parts business where I manufactured Street Fighter parts, and that was a mobile business. And Sandra wanted to move back to Texas because of the weather, so we picked up and moved back to Texas to Crawford, Texas. Had George Bush on one hill from us and SpaceX on the other hill from us.
Wow. Okay, so you didn't even leave the area because of all of that.
No, no, no.
Wow. So you're just not easily so okay, after you saw Avery at the gas station, did any club stuff happen after that or did people leave you alone by that point?
No, I was pretty much, you know, I can, well, you know, it was, they completely, yeah, the insurance company completely destroyed us. And they're from Wisconsin, you know, so there's that. But I mean, it seems to happen to everybody. So I can't say, you
Yeah.
know, for sure. And, you know, I was working from home then, you know what I mean? So it'd be really hard to really, you know, do much, you know. I
Right.
tried to work with some local businesses and they were like, get the fuck out of here. You know, so
Yeah. So, okay, so at which point I know you've kind of looked into quite a lot of other conspiracy theories by now. When did your interest in kind of learning about how corruption works in many different ways outside of Manitowoc as well? When did that start?
well, when 9/11 happened and after, you know, and you know, when I was following them guys around on my bicycle, I mean, I was like, I knew that they were up to really bad stuff. You know what I mean? And the local pickle parks, the local like out like their waysides out in the country and stuff, it's just filled with them. They go out there and do all sorts of sick stuff. Manitowoc County closes down uh, uh, Maribel Caves, which is a completely crazy cave place with that caves
Yeah.
bar and stuff. They have parties out there. They park a cop car in front of the entrance to be like, nobody should come in here, and they party down there. They have great big huge parties.
So if you had to guess, I mean, how much worse do you think the Manitowoc area is than some of these other areas in the US?
Well, it's worse because they had the Al Capone thing going on there and all the liquor running and things like that. They had the military industrial complex in there during World War II, building submarines and boats and shit. So there's all that, and it's eh, yeah, a lot of money going through there, and that's what the club loves. They loot. You know what I mean? When I was a peon mechanical contractor, I knew that they were taking like electric motors. You get these people in these factories, and you have everybody that's in charge somewhere is in the club, and they would take these electric motors that were brand new and say that they were broken, used. So they'd have me load them up in a truck, and then the engineer guy would just change the tags and bring them back, and they were new, and they would bill them for new electric motors that were not even used. You know what I mean? You
Okay,
understand?
so there's a lot of overlapping.
That's how it works. That's
Yeah.
that's they loot the whole shit. Everything gets looted. It's like they're lords of the area, and every business everything that goes on, they get a piece of it. Everything.
Wow. Okay. So yeah, basically mafia tactics, literally.
Yeah. Well,
In
that's
a
what they
lot of
wanted at my bar. They wanted me to
yeah,
kick up. You
yeah.
know.
So obviously, Zellner's latest appeal motion got denied to nobody's surprise. What do you think? You think she's? I mean, what do you think is next in terms of Zellner trying to expose all this? How much do you think Zellner knows? Have you talked to her?
I know I haven't talked directly to her, but I've been in contact with people that are in contact with her. And that thing that you read on your one show that's gone now, the statement, I wrote all this down, how it
Yeah,
happened.
yeah.
That's been sent to her. I send it to her all the time. I rip on her on X all the time.
And so, how much do you think she knows? Because I know she's talked to a lot of people in that
Well,
area.
she sent two private eye women to my house after I released those videos
Uh
and
huh.
in Texas when we were living here in Texas. These two girls show up who are
In
YouTubers.
Texas. In
Yeah.
Texas.
Yeah, and
Wow.
they wanted to hear my story, you
Okay.
know. And I live in the sticky sticks. They were risking it, climbing over the gate and
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
You know what
So
I mean? And they came here. They were really nice, and they recorded. I told them everything I'm telling you. You know what I mean?
yeah, because I
And
know
he didn't,
from what
they didn't say they were for Zellner though. They said they were working for a lawyer from Chicago,
okay.
but they referred to
So
it as a woman.
because Zellner, from what I've seen online, Zellner's talked to a lot of different people in that area that have told her a
Oh,
lot of
for
things.
sure. People that contact me who don't want to talk about the club, that know about
Yeah,
the club, talk to her. She
yeah,
knows. And remember, she tweeted like at the very beginning about eyes wide shut. That tweet, I have it somewhere. I saved it. But that was when she first was finding out about this, and she was pretty cocky, you know. And then they gave her that wrong. She got the wrong message, where the call or whoever left a message for her, but it was for somebody else, and they admitted having the bones after they didn't have the bones.
yeah, yeah.
After that happened, and she talked about that, her complete story changed. It was like she was done. She
So
didn't want
you
anything.
think so you think they got to her.
For sure, for sure.
So you don't
She
think she's gonna get anything done at this point?
No, she's a lame duck. She's scared shitless. She cares about money way more than she cares about Stephen Avery. Let me tell you that.
Wow, that's disheartening to hear. I mean, she's uncovered quite a few corruption cases, but I'm guessing she
Yeah, this
hasn't
is
tackled.
bigger.
Yeah,
This
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 is
goes a long ways. I mean,
yeah.
there's a lot to uncover here, and not just
So
my bar and Marianne. I mean, there's a lot
yeah.
more. You know what I
So
mean?
in Europe, so do you think again in a world in a post Epstein, post Diddy world where it seems like people are kind of getting wise to a lot more of the corruption going on and they don't have blinders on when it comes to police and all of this. Do you think the truth will be known in this lifetime before too
No,
long?
people. You know what? Trump derangement syndrome is?
Yeah.
You know? Okay, there's Avery derangement syndrome in that guy. Same thing, same thing. They hate him. You know, they hate him.
Well, I think just my opinion from looking at a lot of different cases, I think the dam's gonna crack and break everything wide open, everything from Scott Peterson, like all these cases of obvious corruption. I think once they're going to start getting knocked down like dominoes. I don't know when it's going to happen, but once the dam breaks, I mean, there's going to be no way for anybody to hide at a certain. There's going to be a certain breaking point.
Well, there's another guy who contacted me he was in Oregon, and he was supposedly at the sacrifice the night
What?
of
Wait, what?
the Halloween, the night of the Halloween.
Wait. He was there. What's you're saying? If the Hallback sacrifice?
Somebody that
Somebody
night,
was.
Halloween, or one of the nights around that night when they were having the party, supposedly in the gravel pit. You know that
Oh wow!
the
So
building's
the
gone.
whole.
The building's gone. They moved the whole place.
What
Gone with
What do you think
bulldozers.
about the law enforcement possible FBI presence at Cuss Road?
Um, yeah, that was probably some. I That's probably where they dumped the bodies from the sacrifice, and they just covered it up. You know, they sacrifice animals and shit too.
Yeah,
That's
that,
all
that
the
seems
bones
to
out
be.
there. Look at all the bones they found out.
Yeah,
Human
yeah. I
bones.
went over. Pails. There were pails and pails of bones. I went over that. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, there's a lot of dark stuff.
And the way it works is, they have their big party and everybody's taking drugs, and there's people that are masked there, so nobody knows who they are. They wear the mask like in Eyes Wide Shut.
Yeah.
Okay, then they have actors, the people that are going to commit the crime of the sacrifice. Okay, and they bring whoever out there, and the people who are the actors commit the sacrifice, and the people they all watch and do whatever they do. They probably have sex and everything else while they're doing it. But yeah, it's likely that maybe Teresa Hallbach was there masked, and they actually sacrificed somebody like
Oh
that,
wow.
right? Boo Well went
There's a
missing,
theory.
and
Yeah.
that's a whole bunch of bullshit. Her whole case is bullshit too. All the stuff that happened to her.
Wow. Yeah, we're gonna have you on again for a follow-up episode if you don't mind. To because it looks like we're just scratching the surface here, but uh yeah,
But yeah,
if you're
somebody contacted me that was there, and they said they had blood on their hands and they were running scared.
wow. All right, so you just dropped possibly the biggest bombshell on the case yet. So someone contacted you that was physically there during this masked sacrifice?
Yeah, yeah, and I've got messages and messages from people that have talked about the club in the area. But yeah, this guy, and he sounded like he knew what was going on. He knew about the boot wheel theory and things like that. So he's either some troll messing with me, which could be. But I had heard this other ways. You know what I mean? So that's what makes me think that the guy was lying.
What other people have corroborated this, or
Well, the satanic ritual, all the crazy stuff that they do. Yeah, for sure.
and so
People are
it,
people are scared shitless. These people are scared shitless of these people. The people that really know, they're
so you think there could have potentially been Bootwell could have potentially been sacrificed that night?
or someone. I mean, she looks just like him, right? That would be a double again for the jesters, that they fooled everybody there into thinking that they actually sacrificed her and it was someone else.
So you left in '07. So what was the sentiment, like the local sentiment, right around the time you were leaving, right before you
Nobody
left?
thought he was guilty.
Oh
I thought
wow.
he was guilty. I thought he was guilty until I watched the trial.
Huh. So in terms of okay, and at that time there were still rumors of the club, but not satanic rumors.
Oh no, I'd heard the satanic stuff for quite a while.
You had or hadn't?
I had, yeah. Oh
Oh,
yeah,
when was
since
the
the night.
well? When was the first time you heard about the satanic stuff?
drunken club member friends expressing how fearful they were of how things went at these parties sometimes, you know.
Yeah, you know what's weird? I think I did 9.5 hour podcast on receipts of documented, prosecuted with video evidence cases of satanic ritual abuse because a lot of people think that's all made up and not real. So this is definitely like a widespread issue. So it wouldn't necessarily be that surprising that this was also going on in the Manitowoc area. So you're saying it's very possible Redont and those people are kind of involved in some of this stuff.
Well, according to Bob Ziegebauer, everybody in the area who's in business or government is in the club. So,
So the so-called whistleblower that contacted you about this satanic sacrifice ritual, how many people did he say were there?
at this one supposedly boot well
Yeah,
or whatever,
yeah.
I don't know, a lot of people.
Did he put 10, 20, 30?
50, you
Oh,
know,
wow.
a lot of people. A big
50.
party.
Wow. So what do you think of Walter Siebert, who lives right around there? Do you think some of the locals, do you think they know or
Yeah, a lot of people contact me and talk about this. A lot of people know.
because if you're one of these neighbors, you surely you would see like a lot of cars, a lot of activity around in that area.
Do you want to say anything?
They probably
Especially
wouldn't.
if you have kids,
Probably not.
you know, especially if you have kids.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really dark. That's really dark. So you moved away, you learn more and more about the case. Obviously, your story's been consistent since the very beginning, and you've just told it again. I've been
Yeah,
kind of
another thing,
following it.
people rip on me all the time. Another thing that I heard right away from somebody was that there was a bunch of them in on it. Okay, at the wherever this happened, whatever happened with Teresa or whoever, and I had said something on the internet, and they thought that I was talking about the brothers and stuff, you know, and I might have been, but at that time, this is when it first happened, you know what I mean? And I had heard that from then too, you know. People had
So
found some old messages of mine, you know, and
if you
that's what I
had
was talking.
if you had to guess, what do you think? Like the ex-boyfriend, the roommate, do you think they were just or even Hallback's brother? Do you think they were all just told what to say after the fact, or do you think they were somehow involved in something?
I think they all played their part, you know. Somebody planned this, you know, to get rid of Steve because of the money or what this ongoing beef or who knows what, you know, both.
But I mean, I don't think you or anybody is really alleging that Hilligus, Blowdorn, and Hallback's brother were masterminds of anything, right? They're just
No, no,
yeah,
Christ, no. They were just peons.
yeah. So my question, if you had to guess, like what level of involvement are the peon? Did they just is it all verbal after the fact, or do you think they were
Well,
physically
like
involved?
Bobby and Scott right now, they live in wonderful houses in the country. Got a great job, man. They got no worries. Before Scott, when he first started dating the sister there, he was living in his parents' backyard in an RV, and he was bankrupt.
Yeah,
Then after this, I mean, they're pimp rich, you know.
must be a coincidence.
Yeah, well, they, you know, lucky.
So, yeah, I mean, we'll wrap this up here. Obviously, we got to do a follow
Well,
episode.
remember, the Hallbach brother got a job at the Green Bay Packers, and the
Yeah,
other
I
Hallbach
saw that.
brother got a great big law firm or something. He's a real dangerous guy, you know. So,
Is there anything else you wanna go over before we wrap it up?
um, I don't know. There's a lot. There's so much. You know what I mean? I could. There's a lot to this. You know what I mean? And it's hard to remember it all. You know, at once like this.
Well, I'm sure. I'm
But
sure after this episode, we'll get a lot of questions, so we can go
yeah,
through. We
they
can
can bring
go
them
through.
on too. You know what I
Yeah, we'll go
mean?
through the
I got a lot of
questions.
doubters. I get a lot of hate, and I ain't lying. This is true shit.
Well, I think that's why. This is just one of my theories, just going over logic and psychology. I think that's why you get the hate, because they know, even if they don't necessarily believe you, they know it's possible what you're saying could be true, and that triggers them. That triggers them, so they adamantly have to pretend there's no chance it's true. Otherwise, they wouldn't spend any time on it. Like, why would they spend the time hating on you or anybody if they truly believe there's zero chance of it being true? They wouldn't even waste the time.
Yeah.
But thanks again for the interview, the one and only Dave Bogatka. We've been meaning to do this for quite some time, but now we finally got the first interview in the books, and we'll do a follow up. We'll look at all the questions, and
All
we'll
right.
do a follow.
Are you going to put that other video back up where you read my statement or whatever I have?
It is up.
It
It's
is?
in
Okay.
it's in one of the. So I think I did clips. The clip might not be up. I'll double check. I'll put the clip back up too. But it was in one of the Avery episodes. I don't remember which
Well,
one.
because you read the whole thing, and that explains it the best. I mean, I'm not very good at
Oh no, you did
remembering
fine.
everything at once.
Oh no, you did fine, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to find this very very informative. And there are even people like TikTok Manitowoc. I don't know if you spend time on that subreddit. They post a
Yeah.
lot of stuff, and they're connecting a lot of stuff to other cases as well.
Another case you could look into in Green Bay was that the guy, I can't remember the name now, but the guy supposedly got exonerated or whatever, they not guilty because he had his Fitbit on, and his wife was having revenge sex in the driveway or across the street, and he went out there and beat her to death and beat the guy up, and then supposedly took him out and dumped the body. And the guy who was having the revenge sex, which is something in Wisconsin too, they do that. When you're mad at your spouse, you go out and get drunk and then have sex in the driveway with somebody. Vanderhaden was the name of the murder. I mean, that one just reeks of the club too. I don't know, but if there's another thing
All right,
that
one
you
more
want
one
to
more
do,
question. How so this specific club, are there different branches of it? Is it like a statewide club or
it could be worldwide.
so okay, I gotcha. I gotcha. So they
You
just
know, and
reference it as the club.
yeah, and there's people that's join that think that they're just a regular, they help people. Remember the front people for them. You know how the Masons work.
Yeah, yeah.
You spit on the cross, and then you get to be the bad guy. If you don't spit on the cross, then you're a good guy, and they don't take you any further.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, thanks for the interview. It was really, really informative. And yeah, we'll definitely have to do a follow up at one point.
All right, I'll send you my notes on this. I'll send you a bunch of stuff I forgot to talk about. Maybe we can hit it next time.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, for sure. All right. Thanks again. Take care,
Yep.
Dave.
Bye.
So there you have it. The interview with Dave Bogatka, dropping some bombshells regarding the Stephen Avery case. So just to recap here at the end, supposedly there was some kind of an Illuminati satanic sacrifice, possibly of Carmen Boutwell, where possibly Teresa Hallbeck might have been present for everybody wearing masks. The Bogatka says more than one individual has claimed this. Very, very curious. I mean, this is really mind-shocking stuff here. I hadn't heard that before in the Avery case, but in the post-Epstein era, even the most devout coincidence theorists might look kind of silly denying the existence of any kind of corruption or rituals. Again, if you haven't checked out the 9.5 hours of documented, prosecuted satanic ritual abuse the world over, check out that episode on MINDSHOCK. We'll have to do a follow-up with Dave Bogatka. Obviously, everybody can leave any questions or in the comments sections. So I hope everybody found another edition of the MindShock podcast. Interesting and informative in this interview with the one and only Dave Begotka. If you want to help support the channel, you can donate to our PayPal. Check the link in the description. Make sure to subscribe, like, and share. Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, and Patreon. This is Bruce McGuire signing off. Catch you guys next time.